Idinaraing ng ilang Muslim na nadi-discriminate daw sila sa paghanap ng trabaho. Lumala pa raw ito nang sumiklab ang gulo sa Marawi. Nakatutok
Conversion Muslim enclaves. Like, hanggang doon lang sila pwede. Kasi when they go outside of it, they're not really welcome in other neighborhoods.
After sinabi sa akin na hindi daw po ako tanggap. Ako lang po yung hindi natanggap sa group
Sabi
namin.
nila, ISIS daw yun. Tapos sabi ng mga ISIS, Muslim sila. Napakasakit kasi sa Muslim naisisi yung ganun na pagbobomba. Kahit hindi mo naman masabi na Muslim yung nagagawad ng ganun. Kung totoo kang Muslim, hindi mo yung kayang gawin. Na patahin yung ibang reliyon, kahit ibang reliyon yun, hindi mo kayang gawin yun.
Today we're going to be learning about the Sustainable Development Goals. We are going to focus on the 10th goal, which is about an important issue, reducing inequalities. Do you know what this means? Let's have a look together. When we talk about inequality, we are referring to how some people are treated differently than others. Inequality may be because of different things like gender, religion, origin, and more.
Welcome to Alay Kamay, where we explore key issues related to sustainability, equality, and human rights. I am Ydel.
And I am Rago, your host today. We focus on Sustainability Development Goal 10, reduce inequalities, particularly the discrimination and marginalization of Muslim and Indigenous peoples in Mindanao.
Mindanao is home to diverse population, including Muslims, Christians, and Indigenous peoples. However, despite this diversity, discrimination, historical biases, and socio-economic inequalities continue to create division, affecting opportunities for education, employment, and overall quality of life for many communities.
Joining us today are three experts who will help us understand the issue better. First, we welcome Mr. Josh Morales. Next, we have Ms. Alana Balayo. And lastly, Ms. Kate Olvida. Now, to make this discussion even more engaging, we're going to play a game called
Pick a cue card.
We have a set of cue cards, in each containing a question related to today's topic. But before we start, we have our guest speaker, Mr. Josh Morales. Hi, Josh.
But before we start our first segment on inequality on a global and national scale, Josh, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you very much. How about you guys? How are you guys doing?
I'm good. How about
Okay
you?
lang. Ang init talaga. Okay. Will you please pick a card?
Okay, let's see. Wow, that's an
Okay.
interesting question.
Okay, so the question is, how does inequality plays out on a global and national scale? Mr. Josh, could you give us an overview?
For me, inequality is a major issue worldwide. Studies by Reyes et al. 2017 shows that access to education, income, and infrastructure remains unequal across countries. In Europe, inequality is linked to social protection policies and labor markets, while in India, rural communities have fewer economic opportunities and worse infrastructure than urban areas. In the Philippines, indigenous people and Muslim communities face economic exclusion, cultural discrimination, and underrepresentation in the governments. Many live in rural or conflict-affected areas where they have limited access to education, healthcare, and infrastructure.
That's a strong point. The idea of some communities have fewer rights in practice despite legal protections is concerning. And in Mindanao, the effects are even more pronounced.
Now, before we start our second segment, the social and economic impact, we welcome our second speaker, Ms. Alana Balayo. Hi!
Hello!
So, Ms. Alana, same with the first segment, please choose a cue card. Wow! Ooh, what an interesting question. For your question, Ms. Alana, what are the economic and social consequences of this inequality?
One major issue is poverty and unemployment. In the Bangsamoro region, 63% of the population lives below the poverty line, compared to the national average of 23.7%. Many Muslims face employment discrimination due to stereotypes. Employers sometimes reject job applications simply because of a Muslim-sounding name. Education is another concern. Schools in predominantly Muslim areas receive less funding, and Islamic schools lack government support. As a result, literacy rates in Muslim-majority provinces are lower than in other parts of the Philippines. The same issue affects indigenous peoples, who often live in remote areas without access to quality education. Social discrimination also takes a toll. Muslim women wearing hijabs report being harassed or denied jobs. Indigenous communities like the Lumad struggle with land grabbing and displacement, often at the hands of large corporations or military forces.
Wow! These issues show inequality is not just about perception. It has real measurable effects on people's lives.
Now, for our last speaker, we welcome Miss Kate.
Hi!
Okay, Miss Kate, please pick a card. Alright, so your question is, Mindanao has one of the highest inequality rates in the Philippines. Miss Kate, what are the main causes behind this ongoing disparity?
In economics, Muslim and indigenous people in Mindanao face higher poverty rates, with 63% living below the poverty line. Many are excluded from high-paying jobs and educational attainment lower in conflict-affected areas. Infrastructure and government services are also underdeveloped in these communities. Culturally, many societies view their own traditions as superior, rejecting indigenous and Muslim customs as unmodern or backward. There is also resistance to multiculturalism, with some believing that the national identity should revolve around one dominant culture, leaving little room for indigenous and Muslim representation.
That culture bias contributes to the ongoing discrimination, but structural barriers also play a role, right? What are some of these barriers?
Historically, Muslim communities have been excluded from mainstream political and economic system, creating a divide between them and the broader Filipino population. This exclusion leads to stereotypes, lack of representation, and misunderstandings. Legal frameworks also fail to protect indigenous and Muslim rights. Land laws often disregard ancestral domains, allowing corporations or political elites to claim indigenous lands. Additionally, Muslim and indigenous leaders have limited political representation, making it harder to advocate for community needs. This systemic marginalization reinforces inequality, making it harder for these communities to gain access to education, jobs, and infrastructure.
Wow, thank you for that really detailed description, Miss Kate.
Now, to wrap up, we gather here all our speakers to answer this question. What are some initiatives working towards reducing these inequalities? Since we're focusing on solutions, let's go around and share one initiative or policy that could create a real change. Let us start with Mr. Josh.
Oh, well, for me, it's educational reform, as it's one of the most crucial solutions. We need culturally inclusive curricula that include indigenous and Muslim histories so that students from these backgrounds feel represented. More scholarship programs for Muslim and indigenous youth can also bridge the educational gap. Without access to quality education, future generations will continue to face the same inequalities. And that answers your question.
Right! Representation in education is powerful. tool for breaking cycles of marginalization. Now, Miss Alana, what's another key solution? Can you add?
Economic inclusion is another major factor. Many businesses hesitate to invest in Mindanao due to conflict history and lack of infrastructure. But government incentives like tax breaks for companies that hire from indigenous and Muslim communities can encourage investment. Also, programs that support local entrepreneurs, especially Muslim and indigenous women, can create sustainable businesses and jobs within these communities.
That is smart approach. Economic empowerment can uplift entire communities. And Miss Kate, do you have another resolution to add?
Yes, political representation. Even with Bangsamoro government, many decision-making bodies still lack indigenous and Muslim voices. Encouraging youth development and leadership programs and ensuring more government positions are accessible to marginalized groups can help create policies that truly reflect the needs of these communities.
These are all strong solutions. Land reform, education access, economic opportunities, and political representation. But how do we turn these ideas to real action?
Well, one way is through grassroots movement. When local communities advocate for their rights, change becomes more likely. Organizations supporting indigenous and Muslim communities need more funding and public awareness.
Also, allyship matters. Non-Muslims and non-IP individuals should educate themselves and support policies that promote equality. This isn't just a problem for Mindanao, it's a national issue.
And finally, holding leaders accountable. If laws exist but aren't enforced, communities need platforms to demand action. Public forums, media coverage, and legal action can push for better implementation.
Wow, thank you for that. Our three guest speakers. Today's discussion has shown us that inequality in Mindanao isn't just about numbers or policies. It's about real people, real struggles, and real opportunities for change. From education and economic access to political representation and cultural inclusion. We've uncovered the roots of inequality and explored meaningful solutions.
But awareness alone isn't enough. If we want to see progress, we must turn knowledge into action. Whether if it's supporting policies that protect indigenous and Muslim rights, amplifying marginalized voices, or simply educating ourselves and others. Every effort brings us closer to a more just society.
Inequality isn't permanent. If we invest in education, inclusive policies, and economic opportunities, we can break these cycles and create a future where every community is valued and empowered.
It starts with the small things, challenging biases, advocating for fair policies, and ensuring that progress includes everyone, not just a privileged law.
And more importantly, we need to listen to the stories, struggles, and aspirations of communities who have long been unheard. Change begins with understanding.
So, to everyone who's listening, ask yourself, what role can you play in reducing inequality? Because the future we build is shaped by the actions we take today.
With that, we wrap up this episode of Alay Kamay Para sa Muslim. Thank you to our guest speakers for Ms. Kate Olvida, Ms. Alana Balayo, and Mr. Josh. Thank you to our guests for their insights and to our audience for joining us in this important conversation.
Let's continue to question, challenge, and work toward a world where justice and inequality are not just ideals but realities.
Until next time!